why every African American person used to think they could make fun of Africans back in high school.
That's a good question. I got the answers. Stay tuned. The reason why African Americans was making fun of Africans in high school is because, simple, we were lied to. America created this false silver lining for African Americans saying, we know we enslaved you. We know that's bad. But if we didn't enslave you, you'd be in Africa fighting diseases and eating each other. America led us to believe the more American you are, the better you are in life. And Africa, you want to stay way away from it.
So let's keep it real and have this conversation in, right? We said we were lied to and told. The more American you are, the more better you are in life. And that's exactly what we was lost in the South scene. As a matter of fact, some would say we was indoctrinated by American exceptionalism. And as somebody with a master's degree in education, I'm going to start this by saying that American exceptionalism is embedded into the curriculum. Because a lot of us as African Americans will allow for this settler master paradigm to sit in our minds, and we'll really buy into American exceptionalism. It's the idea that the United States is inherently different from the other nations, being perceived both domestically and internationally as superior. He ended his video by saying, America led us to believe the more American we are, the better we are in life. And a lot of us play it out in terms of how we relate to folks in the African diaspora. And this when I started getting into how insidious our enslavement was. This country literally taught us, we know we enslaved you, but look at your people over there where we saved you from. You better be lucky that you ain't living in a primitive state with famine and war, and you lucky that we enslaved you. As a matter of fact, some of us was taught that our enslavement was part of saving our souls and civilizing us. You think about how American exceptionalism work, it's perceived as saying that because you are American, you are superior. Think about it. Back in the day, we ain't had the internet. You feel me? I'm from Texas. I know folks that's from New York and California. All of us was talking about African booty scratchers. Who taught us that? In the words of Malcolm X, who taught us to hate ourselves? Because you can't hate the roots without hating the tree, right? I was trying to stay away from essentialism, but literally everything we've been taught in America about Africa is from the people that enslaved us. They not finna teach us the truth. We was really lied to. We was really lied to, and we bought into the inferiority of our own people. We'll take this idea of American exceptionalism and we'll project it on to everybody in the diaspora, whether they in the Caribbean or whether they in Africa. When I say education is elevation, I'm talking about unlearning and relearning a lot of things we've been taught in this world. I began this video by talking about education, the curriculum, how we are taught. Not only how we taught like math and science and history and how Europeans found and located everything, but also how the media teaches. Remember those Feed the Children Africa commercials? We was really led to believe that folks in Africa cannot survive without the presence of the Europeans. Don't that sound familiar? If I'm being real, a lot of what we've been taught in the African diaspora about each other came from the people that colonized us and enslaved us. We got to think about that. Because I also know a lot of y'all believe that African Americans are inherently lazy. Education is elevation.
Someone just said, imagine not being African American. I'm not toxic, you are, because if I was African American, yeah, don't know which African country I'm from, start beef with black people that actually live in Africa, and thirdly, disregard the blackness of black people all around the globe. Really and truly, do I even have the right to represent black people as a whole?
Number one, both of y'all toxic and lost in the sauce, engaging in this old narrative that's parasitic to the entirety of the African diaspora. Number two, is y'all really engaging in the authenticity test about who represents blackness on Beyonce's internet? Number three, what y'all engaging in is an illustration of white supremacy's divide and conquer. Number four, the person that left this comment is lost in the sauce of American exceptionalism, where they believe because they were born in America, that makes them an exceptional black. Number five, it's a word for what you lost in the sauce too. It's called natal alienation. And just so we're clear, natal alienation is the estrangement or the disconnection from historical memory, which occurs by severing an individual from their kinship, traditions, historical heritage, including language and religion, and economic inheritance through experiences and social death. And you think that's funny. Number six, I know you tried to caveat this video for problematic African Americans. The only problem is you trivialize damn near the entirety of the identity. Most of us don't know the country we were stolen from. It don't make us less black though. Number seven, it's a way this person could have replied to this comment without trivializing the African American identity and talking about natal alienation. Number eight, both of y'all engagement is negating the multiplicity of the African diaspora. We are literally dispersed throughout the globe, and y'all debating about who represents blackness is coming off as some European shit. Number nine, y'all love to play this little old game, but the same folks that enslaved us came back to colonize y'all. So let's talk about unity. Number 10, the black identity is literally a social construct that was placed onto us by the folks that held us captive. So whether we're talking about enslavement or colonialism, us being labeled as black justified our captivity. Why y'all want to argue about that? You shouldn't hop in my comment section typing about things you know nothing about. See, I got a whole ass degree in African American studies, and I'm very well aware of the African diaspora. With that being said, I'm aware of the peoples in the Latino, Hispanic culture that are of African descent. See, here's the thing about the African diaspora. Much of the music and the dances that's in Latino culture comes from the continent of Africa. I bet you didn't know that though, did you? And even if you did know that, the idea that you're going to be a gatekeeper because I'm not Hispanic or Latino, to me, it's funny, and it shows me that you've learned from the colonizer very well. You gatekeeper, you. I know throughout Latin America, Afro people of Latin culture make up the bottom of it. So stop playing them games with me, man. And lastly, in conclusion, the Latino culture, Hispanic culture is made up of many different races. See, there are people of European descent, African descent, and indigenous descent in the Latino, Hispanic culture community. So you need to get you some literacy and understanding some things before you speak on something you know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Whole lot of read, one shot to the head.
Oh, research over me searching. We're going to turn this into a teachable moment for my fellow Afrocentric, pro-black, and conscious people that love to use Afrocentricity to justify your homophobia because, ooh, you lost in the sauce. When I say lost in the sauce, this means you in the existential state of not knowing what the hell you talking about, but you loud and confident even though you wrong. And a lot of y'all are exactly that, lost in the sauce.
Man, homosexuality is that white shit.
Not recognizing that, in fact, homophobia is the white shit, quote unquote. Stating it simplistically, in Africa, homophobia is a legacy of colonialism, contrary to popular belief. In simplistic terms, when she says homophobia in Africa is rooted in colonialism and white supremacy, she's talking how African sexuality and the legacy of imported homophobia is reality. It shows y'all have a colonial understanding of sexual orientation. Prior to European colonialism, throughout African continent, we see far different, more relaxed attitudes towards sexual orientation.
American government, whoever the authority there is, I am talking to you now. I am African. I no get scared for nothing. I beg, why are my people paying for a DNA ancestry test? You kidnapped them from their homeland. You took them, and you still making them pay $200, $100 to do an ancestry test about where they belong? I beg, bring them back. We want them back, all of them. Before we couldn't.
Most definitely what she said. And you know what's even crazy about capitalism being able to monetize stealing us and then monetizing us wanting to know where we were stolen from? There's actually a few of my fellow African Americans that believe our ancestors just conformed to the slave trade as business as usual because, man, they was the one that sold us into slavery. Let's turn this into a teachable moment for y'all, man. Example number 1. Alfonso I, King of Congo in the 1500s. In 1526, the King of Congo sent desperate letters to the King of Portugal urging him to control his own subjects and to respect the alliance and the common Catholic faith that bound the Europeans and the Africans together. See, because King Alfonso believed that if he converted his folks to being Catholic, that this would convince the Portuguese to seeing their humanity and seeing them as Christians and thus stop enslaving them.
Man, you can't say they was stealing us. They was just giving us away.
Number 2, Queen Azinga was such a gangster in resisting Portuguese slavery and colonialism that after she was kicked out of her country, she was able to go settle another one and make that a safe haven for escaped enslaved Africans because they were literally trying to steal and enslave people in the continent. Number 3, if that ain't enough, let's take it to this study from West African slave resistance from the 17th to 19th century, man. First, while some Africans participated in the slave trade, large populations of Africans resisted not only their own personal capture, but their slave trade itself. Resistance was not merely against slavery or the trading that was taking place with the Europeans, but resistance was against the institution, no matter the final outcome or destination. Number 4, the fact that we're acknowledging that a lot more of us was actually stolen from Africa than was actually sold from Africa does not take responsibility or culpability away from the people in Africa that actually sold us. Number 5, that girl Yoli making this video was so powerful because so many of us in this country have been bamboozled into believing that Africans just inherently do not like us and that's why they sold us. My last point, man, the American government was one of the main beneficiaries of chattel slavery. You see what I'm saying? So it makes sense that they should have to be the ones that's footing the bill for us, not only to learn where we came from, but goddamn, I get a ticket back or something. Stop scrolling. Are you trying to figure out what's going on with this SARS things in Africa? If you are, stop scrolling. This video is really for you. First of all, it's a lot worse than we thought. You know what? I ain't gonna speak for y'all. It's a lot worse than I thought. Here goes some footage right here.
See the nurses jumping fence. See the nurses, see the security guys jumping fence. Then the shani lo she get it for my doctor. So making noise. So making noise. Stop making noise. You want to attract them here? No, let them open the gate. Hey, stop making noise. Yeah, you lost husband now.
In that particular video, we see SARS officers going to the hospital to finish the job on protesters they shot that wasn't dead yet. In that video, you see people fleeing, nurses and doctors trying to get out that hospital, man. That's how bad it is going over there. Just so we clear, I've seen multiple videos in Nigeria with SARS officers shooting at peaceful protesters. I'm talking about dumping on them. My heart and mind is dedicated to everybody in Nigeria dealing with SARS.
I think what is happening to black people right now in Ukraine during this war period should serve as a lesson to all blacks, both in America, both in the UK, who often think that they are not Africans and that they are better than other Africans from Nigeria, Ghana, and all that, and that they are not one because they were born in UK, born in America, and whatever. They are citizens. This should serve as a lesson to you that we are all one black people all over the world, and that you're not better than other blacks. Because when it comes to a showdown, America, UK, Ukraine will always put their citizens first before you because you're black. So stop thinking that you are not black, you are not from Africa. So long as you're black, born in wherever place you are born from, you are an African. The earlier you embrace it, the better for you. And
Big old facts. Us as African descendant people gotta stop being lost in the sauce of nationality because we always know a European kinship will always come before your so-called citizenship. Then all these nations, they will allow for our cultural representations to be incorporated. You know, our dances, our songs, some hairstyles, maybe a little bit of slang. But when it comes to recognizing your humanity, as an American citizen, people that look like me have historically been told when we leave resources and finances for our livelihood, who gonna pay for it? What about the taxes? The infrastructure can't support that. But let your people in your European kinship start feeling like they've been attacked. You can come up with $1 billion. Whether we talking about Ukraine or Israel, come up with $1 billion. It needs to be some of the same people that'll be like Americans first. We gotta keep America first. They don't have that same energy when it comes to us people of African descent though. When African countries get bombed and invaded, it's tradition. When the European countries get invaded and bombed, it's tragedy. One could make the argument that Europeans being violated always is seen as a threat to global stability, but Africans being violated will always be seen as something to sustain global stability. Tell me I'm lying. And don't say nothing about my ashy lips either. A black woman has been crowned Miss Ireland for the first time in the pageant's 74-year history. That's right. For the first time in 74 years, a black woman has been crowned Miss Ireland. Pamela Uber, who has entered the competition as Miss Galway, broke the barriers on Sunday as the first black woman to be crowned Miss Ireland since the event was established in 1947. Shout out to Miss Pamela and all the people of African descent living in Ireland. Hebrew Israelites, listen up, man. I'm of West African descent, specifically talking about Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Number two, if everything you say is right about this Hebrew Israelite stuff, especially when it comes to Deuteronomy, don't get mad at what they doing. You feel me? Take that up with your ancestors that broke their covenant with God, which is the reason why we in the position that we're in, right? Which means that when it comes to people like Walter Wallace, people like George Floyd, we can't get mad at what the system is doing. They're only carrying out the will of God because, hey, ancestors broke the covenant, right? This is why I don't play those Hebrew Israelites games, man. Listen, if you want to be Hebrew Israelite, do your thing. You feel me? Respect to you. But you ain't got no business trying to tell me who I am or what I know about myself because you trying to prescribe into some of that old Western colonial shit where you can tell me who I am and how I identify. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with degrees. Before I had a degree, I knew who I was. And it wasn't Hebrew Israelite. You know what I'm saying? Watch how you come at me, man. I ain't coming at you with no disrespect. Don't come at me with no disrespect. You feel me? That's simple. It be the people that's loud and wrong that want the most attention. Look at them. Start the long laundry list of things you just wrong on. Number one, a African and African American studies degree is not about Black Americans, but specifically about the African diaspora. Which brings me to number two. The video you talking out the side of your neck in response to is an analysis about Latin America, not about the Caribbean, not about the continent, but it shows me you don't understand the African diaspora. Also, all of the Caribbean islands are not Latin American islands. Stop playing. Shout out to Jamaica and Barbados. Also Trinidad and Tobago. Back to what you wrong about. Number three, I was given the analysis about the erasure of Afro-Latino people and you made it about Caribbeans and the continent. I know you on your ass. Number four, even when it comes to clout chasing, you should not speak so loudly on things you just don't know. Which brings me to number five. If you want to just dry ass hate on consciously, you can do that, but you ain't gotta create this false narrative, me pushing false information or trying to be a gatekeeper on what you can and cannot talk about. If you want to talk outside of your neck, do that. But I'm gonna be on your ass every step of the way. This is what I think in terms of being pro-Black. You feel me? If you don't account for all the textures in our community, Black disabled people, Black trans people, Black poor people, you feel me? You trash. You know what I'm saying? All you doing is taking your pro-Black aesthetic and you painting it in whiteface. This is white supremacy. You feel what I'm saying? You like to pick and choose what type of expressions and positions of Blackness and Black folks you rock with. And that's what Master and them taught you. You feel me? All you showing me is that colonial education is so deep and entrenched that you believe that you can be pro-Black while being anti-Black to unique people in our community. You feel me? Like, how can you be pro-Black and you disrespect the Black LGBT community? You know what percentage of the Black community is LGBTQ? A lot more than y'all believe. Don't mind my kid in the background. I'm still gonna talk my shit to you. You feel me? Just my son in the background, he know he better not bring none of this shit to my household. He gonna be on his head. You feel me? Education is elevation. Research over research. If you want to learn more, you feel me? Google is your friend. Go to the library. I say library.